Number 10. Animated Spider-Verse. I love this version of Gwen, although really she is pretty similar to her comic book counterpart, but maybe that's why I love her so much. One thing she does have that her comic book counterpart does not is an audible voice. In both Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, Gwen is voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who does an amazing job. I love how much we've gotten to explore her story, and I am hoping we get to spend a bit more time in her Earth, the animated Earth 65, going forward in the franchise. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love alternate versions, we do have an alternate versions playlist, so you can click it, check it out. Number 9. Ghost Spider-Man. While only making a brief appearance in the comics, I have to mention this one. You know me, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so any opportunity to talk about her, I am here for it, and I'm here for this one too. Unfortunately for me, she actually is an alternate that is both a combination of her and Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider-Man is one of the alternate heroic versions of May that appears in Spider-Verse issue number 2, when she summons the power of her alternates to defeat the Carnage variant. The costume Ghost Spider-Man wears is near identical to Gwen's, and for those who don't know, Ghost Spider is also the codename for Gwen. Like I said, she has had many codenames.
Number 8. Penny Parker. This Parker from Earth 14512 doesn't actually have any powers of her own, and while that may make her a little bit of a strange choice for an unstoppable Spider-Man list, she makes up for it with the totally awesome mech spider suit worn by her father before his demise, and that is half controlled by a radioactive spider. First appearing in Edge of Spider-Verse number 5 in October of 2014, Penny and the Spider Mech are essentially able to do anything you'd expect from a Spider-Man, and technically she doesn't actually have any written limitations yet. Yes, that's a lame reason for her to be so powerful, but it's a legit reason all the same. The mech suit is outfitted with weapons for basically any situation a story calls for, and defenses that would put pretty much any other Spider-Man to shame. Penny also played a pretty prominent role in the animated Spider-Verse movie, and she's become an extremely popular character, which, as we know, makes her just a smidge more powerful. Number 7. Superior Spider-Man. This one is a little odd. It's Dr. Otto Octavius, yes, Doc Ock, but nearing his mortal end, he switches bodies with Peter Parker, sending Peter off to Spidey Heaven, temporarily, and Otto finds himself taking on the heroic role of Spider-Man. But he isn't evil! Being in the body of Peter gave Otto an insight into Peter's life and motivation, and actually gave him a change of heart. Now, we have a Spider-Man with all the powers of Peter Parker, but the super genius intellect and cold heart of Otto Octavius. Spider-Ock, or as people call him, Spock, changes things. He took his genius and experience and applied it, making an awesome new suit, spider bots, and mechanical arms. He also straight up took a few villains to their graves, and even single-handedly defeated the Sinister Six, taking the Living Brain as a trophy. He completely dumps MJ, which is kind of a downside, but starts a relationship with Anna Maria Marconi, who became a popular addition to the Spider-Man canon. He purged Carly Cooper of the Goblin Serum, helped Aunt May walk again, got Peter his PhD, mainly for clout, and built a scientific empire that would make him a multi-billionaire. And a version of him played a huge role in the Spider-Verse event, even leading a whole team of spider totems. Number 6. Zombie Spider-Man. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to. All the same powers at least, except after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, combined with the fact that he is essentially undead and can take a whole whack more punishment. Both of those factors led him and a group of other heroes to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the cosmic power, or the power cosmic, however you want to say it. With this power cosmic, the zombie Galacti, which is what they called themselves, have the ability to absorb and tap ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy through their hands and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time travel, and to manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. But they mainly use it to get their next snack. Though Spider-Zombie loses all of this power, he still had it and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man, and he kept surviving into the new zombie world they eventually eventually ended up on. Number 5. Peter Parker of Earth 92100. You'd think the addition of extra arms for a Spider-Man would be an added benefit. When it happened to Peter in the 616 universe though, he freaked the hell out and pretty quickly got rid of the extra limbs using the DNA of Michael Morbius. To be honest, if I sprouted 2 extra sets of arms, I'd probably be a little freaked out too. I also kinda wonder how the musculature of your body would change, but I'm getting off topic. On Earth 92100, when Peter grew his extra limbs, unfortunately, Morbius did not live long enough to help Peter because he was eaten by sharks, which meant that Peter kind of had to just deal with it. Well, what do you know? Turns out during a fight with Doc Ock, after Peter embraced his extra appendages, they actually give him a distinct advantage. The added arms seem to grant him much more strength and agility, and using them he is even able to save Gwen Stacy from her demise at the hands of the Green Goblin. Unfortunately, these arms don't really protect him from the Inheritors, but they didn't really beat him. Instead, he sacrificed himself to save Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider from the Inheritors in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 2, Number 6 in 2014. Number 4. Silk. Cindy Moon's first appearance in the comics was actually as a cameo in issue 1 of the 2014 Amazing Spider-Man reboot. In that comic, we see the events that lead to Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. A spider gets caught in a particle collider and becomes heavily irradiated, and then it goes off to bite Peter Parker. But after this spider drops off Peter, it crawls along the floor before climbing onto and biting the ankle of a random girl who also happened to be there as well. This girl was Cindy Moon. Just like Peter Parker, Cindy Moon gained amazing spider-related abilities. Cindy got the attention of a man known as Ezekiel Sims, who came and took her away and began training her in how to use her powers for good. He was a mentor and a father figure for her while she was with him, and after he discovered that Morlun was tracking her, he and Cindy agreed that she should be hidden away. That is, until Peter Parker found her. Silk possesses an extrasensory hyper, danger, or silk sense, which is more advanced than the spider sense of Spider-Man and other spider totems. It allows her to react significantly faster in combat for starters, but it also has superior range, and can even sense the identity of an attacker before a fight even begins. Cindy can also weirdly spin webs from her fingertips, and on top of that she was the avatar of a powerful spider totem called the Bride, which made her play an integral part of the huge multiversal Spider-Verse event from 2014. Number 3. Mayday Parker. First appearing in a What If comic, specifically number 105 from December 1997, the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane from a future alternate world, Earth 982, Mayday Parker becomes Spider-Girl and eventually Spider-Woman, and fills the role that her father once held as the next generation of heroes. Where she is only slightly weaker than Peter in the strength department, she is much more agile and has a stronger, more precise spider sense. But her ability to stick to surfaces is considerably more powerful than Peter's as well. However, wall crawling does not come as naturally to May, and she has to concentrate to stick to surfaces. She also has the ability to transmit this ability through objects for short distances. So, as an example, Spider-Girl could stick to the floor and transmit the electrostatic stickiness through the floor, making everyone and everything stuck in place to the floor. I said floor a lot, and that was kind of weird. But what's even cooler is that she can reverse the ability, and instead of stick, she can repel off a surface. This adds power to her jumps, but it can also be used to repel people and objects away from her at a pretty considerable speed. Number 2. Kane Parker. The Clone Saga of the 90s is considered to be pretty infamous by fans of Spider-Man, but while it introduced a lot of strange elements into the continuity, it also added some pretty amazing characters in the form of Ben Reilly and Kane Parker, two somewhat overlooked but powerful Spider-Man clones from that saga. Kane is a great character with a really great arc that even saw him have his own Scarlet Spider series. Now his powers are almost identical to Peter Parker, but luckily for him, these powers were slightly altered thanks to him being a clone. While we're on the topic of power-ups though, there is a reason I chose Kane for this spot over Ben Reilly, who seems to be the more popular clone. Thanks to an ancient prophecy involving spider totems, Kane could transform into a giant tarantula-like monster known as the Other. On top of his spider powers, he gained venomous bone-like stingers which extended from his forearms, night vision, and enough power to defeat the leader of the Inheritors in the Spider-Verse event, before he was set back to normal. And in at number 1, Spider-Man. Just good old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He is essentially the face of Marvel Comics, and almost everyone who just knows of comic books knows of Spider-Man. Sure, Spider-Man has been defeated and even lost his life, but he always comes back, and there is a very low possibility that he will ever be brought down for good. Spider-Man has got more than popularity though. He is also very inspiring, actually really strong, and incredibly intelligent. He is seen and respected as one of the most righteous and brave heroes around, and his heroic attitude, sense of responsibility, almost perfect moral compass, and quick wit make him beloved by not only fans but other heroes and even some villains. But above all that, it's his willpower that I think makes him truly unstoppable. Even in the face of certain death, Spider-Man will always get back to his feet, which has allowed him to use his incredible abilities to perform truly incredible feats. Speaking of his powers, Spider-Man possesses the proportional powers of a spider, like we all know, but he's still done things that even a human-sized spider would not be able to do, and his spider sense gives him an edge in battle that, combined with his other abilities, has made him next to unstoppable. And even when placed beside all the other Spider-Men and Spider-Women of the Spider-Verse event, he was acknowledged as the most powerful one. Kicking off the list at number 10 is Spider-Cat. Ah! It's a kitty! It's a little kitty cat Miles Morales. Or, I'm so sorry, Meows Morales. No, I'm not joking, that's actually his name. Look at his little cute face. Coming to us very briefly in the pages of Spider-Man Annual Volume 3, Number 1, Spider-Cat was one of the combatants in the first ever Secret War. Yes, that's Secret Wars, but animalified. He appeared for about 5 minutes when he was knocked into the window of the Watch Dogs bar and had an extremely brief conversation with Howard the Duck and Spider-Ham, during which Meow's uncle, Uncle Heron, was mentioned, who in this animal universe has the evil alter ego of dun dun dun, the Growler. Ooh, nice. Unfortunately, the Celestial who was supervising this battle realm was just a big old grumpy grump and decided that he would completely destroy the place, including anyone who inhabited it. But I will hold out hope that we get to see Meows Morales once again in the future, at some point. Hopefully. Maybe. Number 9, Dark Ages. Dark Ages is, in my humble opinion, a pretty underrated story. Essentially, a superpowered machine known as the Unmaker was causing massive devastation in the core of the planet, and in an attempt to stop the threat, a portal created by Doctor Strange released an EMP that completely crippled the world's technology. The story essentially sees the world rebuilding itself without the use of any advanced technology, while also dealing with the many threats of the world, including werewolves, vampires, and supervillains, specifically the mutant apocalypse. Miles was one of the survivors of this new society, although here, Miles became bonded to the Venom symbiote, which he used to try and help during the first early years. They worked together well until the Carnage symbiote also forcibly bonded itself to Miles as well. Not like Carnage kicking out Venom, I'm talking Carnage corrupting Venom, and the two symbiotes both agreed to take over Miles' body. And they even went to work for Apocalypse in exchange for a starship to escape the Earth. All the while, Miles remained unconscious, being used as an unwilling host. It sounds horrifying, but the Venom Carnage combo was absolutely awesome in my opinion. A little scary, but awesome. Very awesome. Number 8, Nightcrawler Spider-Man. Very recently, meaning this year, we have been introduced to the Sins of Sinister story arc, which is basically Mr. Sinister enacting a plan to take over the world and actually pretty much succeeding. There's a whole lot to this plan that kind of deserves its own point, but one part of his plan is using his cloning know-how to create chimeras. These essentially are spliced together versions of mutants and other heroes, so basically taking the already powerful mutant heroes and making them even more powerful by giving them a second power. There are some really cool mashups, but one of the spin-off comics from this event is X-Men Sins of Sinister Nightcrawlers. This comic features a team of spliced together Nightcrawlers who call themselves the Legion of the Night, and one of these splices puts the powers of Nightcrawler on a clone of Peter Parker. It's a blue-skinned man who can do whatever a spider can, but who can also bamf from place to place. I never knew it was something I needed, but it definitely is. Nightcrawler never gets enough love in my my eyes, and he's definitely one of the coolest of the X-Men. Unfortunately, I think Marvel knows how powerful this combo would really be, so they dispose of this chimera in a pretty lame way, but in my eyes, unstoppable. Number 7, Spider-Pool. Okay, I'll be honest, we have like zero information on this alternate Spider-Man. During the Spider-Verse, we were introduced to so many versions of Spider-Man that to go through each and every one in detail would have left us with no actual Spider-Verse story, and that story is dope, so no. But good golly, I wish for this one character they would have. First spotted in issue 9 of The Amazing Spider-Man from 2014 in a tiny little panel is an alternate Spider-Man wielding a katana. We see him again from the back in issue 14, and then we finally see a frontal view of this Spider-Man in issue 15 when the suspicions are confirmed. There for all to see is a Spider-Man who is also dressed with elements of the character of Deadpool. Surviving the war with the Inheritors that took the life of so many alternate versions of Spider-Man, of course he would make it through. We can assume that this guy has all the Spider-Man powers, but if he's also Deadpool, then this version of Spider-Man also has that god-level healing factor, and based on the katanas, he is just as okay with being a complete psychopath. While we have no idea about this Spider-Pool's name, story, powers, or personality, we can make enough guesses to know that this guy is incredibly capable and most likely unstoppable. Number 6, Takuya Yamashiro. Instead of being Peter Parker, the Japanese Spider-Man, Spider-Man, is Takuya Yamashiro, a motocross racer and son of astrophysicist Dr. Hiroshi Yamashiro. Unlike most versions of Spider-Man, Takuya was introduced through a live-action Japanese Spider-Man TV show, and with that, his character differs quite a bit. For starters, his spider powers are a little less powerful due to the budget constraints for the show, which is a hilarious reason, but don't you dare think that this makes this guy a pushover. To make up for his less powerful spider powers, Takuya has a massive kaiju fighting mech named Lepardon, Power Ranger style with arm rockets, an absolutely giant sword, and a boomerang. He uses Lepardon and his spider abilities to fight the Iron Cross Army, which is a group of suspiciously human-looking aliens from an unnamed world who are led by, wait for it, Professor Monster. Nice. Due to his popularity and just how awesome he is, Takuya Yamashiro has become an official character in the multiverse, coming from Earth 51778, fighting against the Inheritors alongside the Spider Army, and he is set to appear in the second animated Spider-Verse movie, which I am pumped to see. And at number 5 is Hulk Spider-Man. I don't have any problem constantly re-talking about this version of Spider-Man and the Hulk because it's freaking cool. Appearing in the Immortal Hulk with Great Power story, Peter Parker is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transfers the ability to him, taking it away from Bruce Banner. All the proportional spider powers mixed with the unstoppable force that is the green monstrosity of the Hulk. It's actually really cool. If not, a little silly to see the Hulk wearing a torn spider suit. And there are tons of hilarious moments in this story, like Spider-Hulk getting annoyed at the stupid sticky wall, which is just his wall crawling powers. Like, come on. Banner calls in the Fantastic Four with the hope of being able to fix the situation, and I personally wish they just left it so we could still have Spider-Hulk. But alas, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius. It's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, as if it is indeed an alternate universe story, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and learn how to overcome the rage thing. Number 4, Ghost Spider. Spider-Gwen, or as she has come to be known, Ghost Spider, is the Gwen Stacy from the alternate reality of Earth 65. In this reality, it is Gwen Stacy, not Peter Parker, who is bitten by a genetically engineered super spider. This bite granted her superhuman strength, speed, toughened flesh, and pretty much all the spider-based powers that the regular Spider-Man would possess. Plus, in my opinion, she has the best looking spider suit. After Gwen is depowered by Cindy Moon during her self-titled comic, Ghost Spider bonds with the Venom symbiote, and successfully too. Gwen has actually learned to find a very healthy balance with her symbiote. The symbiote itself enhances whatever emotions the host has, right? So, when she first bonded with Venom, thanks to a corrupt Matt Murdock, Kingpin, who she was forced to team up with, she was rage-fueled and looking for revenge against the Rhino for attacking her father, and eventually against Murdock himself. But over time, she realized that she needed to control that and give Venom better qualities to enhance in order to control and find balance with the symbiote. In a way, Venom actually helped Gwen to become a better hero. She is another fan favorite alternate spider hero, and as such has featured in tons of stories. But if you're looking for something to read where Ghost Spider is featured, I suggest Edge of Spider-Verse, where she first appeared, and her own self-titled comic series Spider-Gwen Volume 1 from 2015. Number 3. Spider-Ham. Hailing from a universe where all the Marvel characters are replaced with anthropomorphic cartoon character animal versions of themselves, Peter Porker, yes that is his real name, is Spider-Ham, a pig. Now Peter Porker was actually born a spider named Peter, and he lived in the basement lab of May Porker, a scientist who had created, quote, the world's first atomic-powered hairdryer. Using this atomic hairdryer, May accidentally irradiated herself, and in a weird fit of rage I guess, she bit Peter the spider, which made him turn into an anthropomorphic pig, just like her, only with the relative powers of a spider. In his premiere issue, he would go on to do battle with Hulk Bunny, created when Bruce Bunny was trapped in an arcade cabinet and bombarded with gamma radiation, and I wish I was making that all up, but it really happened. Spider-Ham has most of the same abilities as 616 Spider-Man, only he has this rather unique ability called Spider Nonsense, which basically allows him to be more and more cartoony the more danger he is in, which is the perfect reason to have the wackiest nonsense happen that will save this piggy's hide in some of the most imaginative ways possible. Cartoon powers are incredibly powerful, bordering on reality warping, so this is a pretty unstoppable little piggy. Number 2. Miles Morales. Born to an African American father and a Puerto Rican mother, Miles Morales of the 1610 universe was bitten by the Oz-enhanced spider that caused him to pass out and foam at the mouth. When he awoke, he discovered he had powers. Cool! He would go on to become the next Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, and people love him. Miles Morales is an incredible character. He has almost all of the regular spider abilities, plus some amazing powers unique to himself. Namely, his venom, which is like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like punches and beams and blasts, as well as at long range using his webbing, and that ain't all. Miles is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body, and even his clothes and costumes somehow, go invisible. And apparently, he is immortal, as a side effect of the Oz formula that contributed to his abilities. Also, similar to Ghost Spider Gwen Stacy, who Miles may have a bit of a romance with in this universe, Miles' suit is just dope as hell. And finally, in at number 1 is May Parker. Earth X. It's a world where basically every single person has powers, things have gone apocalyptic, and where the daughter of Peter Parker, May Parker, is Venom. While her retired and cynical pops ain't too thrilled about it, she does actually have complete control over the symbiote thanks to her advanced genetic and honed spider sense. She was eventually under the control of this kid going by the name of the Red Skull, and thanks to her father and other Earth X classic heroes, she was saved. This Spider-Woman / Venom hybrid and her father Spider-Man go on to join a super-powered police force and fight crime and supervillainy threats together. Nice. She eventually, after the death itself, gets recruited by Kang the Conqueror as part of a multiversal team to fight the Apocalypse Twins. In addition to her proportional spider powers plus the enhanced spider sense, she gains all the usual symbiote powers as well, plus a few extra, like what seems to be a rudimentary form of telepathy, and 'tis believed her symbiote could go on to mutate further to gain more powers, which is a good way for Marvel to say, we can do whatever we want with this. She's definitely one of the cooler incarnations of both Spider-Man and Venom to grace the pages of comics. Coming in at number 10 is The Amazing Spider. On Earth 11638, Uncle Ben never loses his life, and instead he helps train Peter Parker with his new spider powers and eventually even helps him to form Parker Industries. Now, given the title of this list, you should know that things aren't all hunky-dory. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to his reality, where he then absorbs their powers to increase his own, making him the most powerful hero on Earth and eliminating the need for any other hero, but also taking the lives of other alternate hims. See, that did take a very dark turn. When he tried to do this to the Spider-Man from Earth 616, our Spider-Man, this powerful version of Peter loses his life and his soul is sent to hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. Not the Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider, but a Ghost Rider Spider. A Ghost Rider Spider. That's what we're going with. Ghost Rider, Spider, for any who don't know, is insanely powerful. He has been called in to deal with the Hulk and has even gone toe-to-toe with Galactus, so this Spider-Man Ghost Rider hybrid is no joke at all. Plus he's kinda evil and he looks really cool. Number 9. Assassin Spider-Man. In What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, we are introduced to Spider Assassin, a Spider-Man variant who is just a little bit more loose when it comes to the morals that he follows. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led the Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York City in order to protect his family from the villains who would make personal strikes against him. Instead, Peter joined up with Wolverine, and because of their time traveling and working together, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife, meaning he does it on the regulars. He is also almost always serious, not doing his normal quips and jokes that we are really used to from Peter, who usually uses it to cope with difficult or precarious situations. His serious nature is also reflected in his costume with a much darker look, especially those black eyes, which are really cool. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include some more lethal means of dealing with his foes. He is an effective addition to the Spider-Man army though when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man just in general. Number 8. Deathlock. Just like what happens on Earth 616, the Miles Morales of Earth 807128 also eventually became a member of the Champions. However, while acting as a champion, Dr. Octopus opened up a portal to the Negative Zone, allowing Annihilus and the Annihilation Wave to come to Earth. Now, Miles, being a hero among heroes, confronted the invading wave, but because he's not that powerful, he was inevitably defeated. But luckily, instead of being outright robbed of his life, he was instead brought to Annihilus. Now, face to face with Annihilus, Miles ended up stealing the cosmic control rod that gives its wielder control over the Annihilation Wave. Only, instead of taking command of the wave, Miles instead swung away and using his Venom Blasts, destroyed the rod completely, losing his own life in the process. It was after all of that he was later turned into a Deathlock. As a Deathlock, one of his missions was to hunt down Conan the Barbarian, whose presence in the present time was causing damage to the timeline. And all that takes place in Savage Avengers Volume 2 from 2022, and you can go read it yourself. Number 7. Spider-Man Life Story. The comic story Spider-Man Life Story sets itself apart from the rest of the Marvel multiverse by having no sliding time scale. Essentially, this means that Peter Parker and Miles Morales aged like they realistically would from the moment their comics were first issued. So for Miles, he always coexisted with Peter Parker, gaining his powers in 2011 when he was 13 years old, when he was bitten by a radioactive spider. Now during a time that Peter was missing, Miles took on the Spider-Man mantle until Peter finally came back and took Miles under his wing. Miles worked alongside Peter's resistance when Dr. Doom successfully overtook the Earth with the help from Dr. Octopus. Now Miles and Peter were key members of the Resistance, but unbeknownst to Dr. Doom, Doc Ock was essentially gaining knowledge to swap his consciousness into the body of Spider-Man, just like he did in the Superior Spider-Man arc, which eventually he did, only this time it was Miles, trapping Miles in Octavius's failing body. Now, being a lot older than the Peter we are used to, Peter Parker figured out what Otto had done, convinced him to undo it, and then sacrificed himself to free the Earth of Dr. Doom. When Otto actually kept his word and returned Miles to his own body, Miles was given Mary Jane's blessing to carry on as this world's main Spider-Man at the age of around 21 years old. That was confusing. Number 6. Spider-Mole. Look, we've already got Spider-Ham, a pig, and we have Spider-Cat, which is a cat. So I mean, it kinda just makes sense that we gotta have a Spider-Mole. And that's exactly what we got in all new, all different Avengers Annual Number 1 from August of 2016. Spider-Mole was, yes, you guessed it, an anthropomorphic mole with the proportionate abilities of a spider. Does it sound completely bonkers? Yes. Are we surprised? Nope! Or at least we really shouldn't be. Spider-Mole used his awesome spider powers to become a superhero who would often spend his time with Hiss Marvel. Yes, that's Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, as a snake. When the villain Quack-O-Lantern broke into a bank, Spider-Mole and Hiss Marvel were there to save the day before they went back to their date. Ooh la la, fancy pantsy fancy. Wow. Number 5. Earth 1048. Finally! It's the Miles Morales from the acclaimed Marvel's Spider-Man video game. This version of Miles ranks among quite a few people's favorites, and I think that is more than fair considering just how awesome each game from this series has been so far. Miles' standalone game, while shorter than the first, was in some ways an improvement over its predecessor. In the original game, though, is where we got his origin. When Miles' father was going to be awarded at the New York City Hall for his heroic acts helping Spider-Man, Martin Lee, acting as his evil alter ego, Mr. Negative, attacked as part of his revenge plot against the mayor Norman Osborn. There's a whole lot going on here. Miles' father's passing caused Miles to become distant and reckless to the point of trying to fight criminals by himself, which is when he was saved by Spider-Man. Meeting his hero was a big deal for Miles, and they kind of became like unofficial friends when Spider-Man suggested that Miles help out at the shelter alongside Mary Jane and Aunt May. It was here, while helping move boxes at the shelter, that a genetically altered spider that had hitched a ride on Mary Jane Watson's jacket from a secret lab at Norman Osborn's apartment jumped off Mary Jane and made its way down to the boxes Miles was moving, causing him to be bitten. That's the Sparks Notes version of that story. You'll have to watch or play the game yourself to learn his whole story. I'm personally excited to see where his character goes in the second game when it finally comes out. Number 4, Earth 42. Okay, before we jump into anything here, if you have not seen the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie yet, and you don't want spoilers, then I suggest that you may want to skip ahead to our third spot today. I repeat, spoiler warning ahead. Okay, as most of you know, Miles Morales was born to Jefferson Morales and Rio Morales in Brooklyn, New York. That's the same here on Earth 42. However, on Earth 42, Miles was supposed to become the Spider-Man, only the spider that was supposed to bite him was actually teleported to Earth 1610B, where it bit the Miles Morales from the first Spider-Verse movie and then later lost its life. This left Earth 42 with no Spider-Man to protect it. Another factor that altered the life of this Miles Morales was the passing of his father, Jefferson. This left Miles being raised by his uncle, Aaron Davis. This inadvertently led to Miles donning what would have been his uncle's suit and becoming this universe's Prowler. Okay, now we can move on. Number 3, Married. This one is an interesting one, specifically because the Earth that this Miles calls home, Earth 8, is actually a possible future of yet another alternate Earth, Earth 65. In Earth 8, Miles Morales ends up marrying the Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman of another alternate Earth, and as a superhero duo, they become pretty famous celebrities. Alongside their 2 children, Spider-Girl and Spider-Boy, plus Spider-Ham, Penny Parker, Jerry Drew, and this really cool Craven-looking Spider-Woman, Miles and Gwen led the Amazing 8, this world's greatest superhero team. While Miles and Gwen were on their second honeymoon in Vanaheim, Gwen's younger self from Earth 65 accidentally arrived in Earth 8's New York and went to the Amazing 8 and specifically Spider-Ham for help to fight Silk back in her reality. Unbeknownst to Miles or Earth 8 Gwen, the 6 other members of the Amazing 8 did indeed go and help the Gwen from Earth 8. From Earth 65. Earth 8? Earth 60? Earth 65. God damn it. Number 2, Mind Spinner. For some reason, when Marvel decided to give us Miles Morales, I guess they couldn't think of any really unique or creative stories, so, just like Peter Parker, Miles got his own Clone Saga storyline. Was it necessary? Maybe not. Did it have awesome stuff? You bet your pants it did. In case you haven't guessed yet, Mind Spinner was indeed a clone of Miles. Unlike Miles though, Mind Spinner had actual physical spider qualities, meaning he had actual massive spider legs, which is just terrifying. But beyond that, Mind Spinner also didn't develop the ability to speak. Instead, he seemed to have psionic abilities which he could also turn into telepathic attacks. Mind Spinner and his brothers escaped and tried to find a way to stay alive as they were not going to last due to their unstable cells and rapid aging processes. Now, Mind Spinner and his brother Salim were arguably the more sinister of the Miles clones, and in their desperation to save their own lives, they would try and attack Miles' family, with Mind Spinner specifically going for his mom. Luckily, Miles was able to stop him. It wasn't until another of Miles' clones saved the day that the other clones began to turn on each other, and Mind Spinner and Salim ended up destroying each other, leaving just one clone left. And in at number 1, it's Shift. That other clone would be Shift. Shift is pretty unique compared to the other two clones. While Salim and Mindspinner had more spider-like or Miles-like abilities, Shift himself was considered a failed clone due to his unstable form. But this was actually just part of his shape-shifting abilities. Shift can expand, contract, or stretch his own mass. He has grown multiple limbs and even changed his whole appearance to that of a monster before. He's quite cool. But what's even cooler is that unlike his brothers, Shift seems to have a bit more of a heroic morality. At one point, when he was left alone to guard Miles while Mindspinner and Salim went off to attack Miles' family, Shift instead helped out his genetic template. He was the one to save Miles' sister from Salim, which caused the clone to attack Shift, which caused Mindspinner to attack Salim, and that is how the other two clones passed away, leaving just Shift as the last remaining clone and an ally to Miles. There's a really cool story where Shift and Miles take on Salim from a different reality, but that's a tale for another time, so sorry. Coming in at number 10 is Twinkie Spider-Man. While originally a crossover advertisement deal between Marvel Comics and Hostess, you know, the company that owns Twinkies, Snowballs, and those cupcake snack pastries, the Spider-Man of Earth 51914 is an official member of the Spider-Verse, being defeated by Morlun in the first Spider-Verse comic in 2014. But Morlun has defeated many spider totems, it's his whole thing. This sweet Spider-Man has all the same powers as our 616 spider-based hero, only he has the added benefit of using Hostess snacks as equipment, whether it be to distract, lure, and reason with criminals, and even get out of tight spots in his relationship, like when he gave Mary Jane a cupcake so he could slip away to fight crime. The power of sweet pastries should not be undervalued. Using his pastry-based equipment, he was able to defeat the Fly, Printout Man, Simon the Evil Swami, Madame Web, Legal Eagle, an unnamed jewel thief, Chairman, Homewrecker, Demolition Derby, Photoman, Hotshot, Junjitsu, Larcenorous Lil, and the Human Computer. So yeah, it's not just a sponsor, it is an added ability that puts him a little bit of a cut above, in my opinion. Number 9, Spider-Man Noir. A grittier, more serious, and ruthless world calls for a Peter Parker who's pretty much the same, and the Spider-Man Noir is definitely that guy. After he seeks out revenge on the Goblin for taking away the life of his Uncle Ben, he goes to a warehouse where a spider idol containing thousands of spiders is broken. One of these spiders bites Peter and Bob's your uncle. Peter has visions of a spider god and is granted abilities. He is granted most of the same powers as regular Spider-Man with a bit less strength and a stronger healing factor, but with the ability to use organic webbing, Spider-Man Noir may not be the most powerful character in the Spider-Verse. There are plenty of others who have added abilities or play a larger hand in the conflict, but he has the power of popularity on his side, being a fan favorite character ever since his introduction, which is why, in my opinion, he's one of the few alternate Spider-Men to survive Morlun, despite whatever excuse the comic gave. Also, he looks super cool.
Number 8, Witch Hunter Gwen. This one comes to us from an alternate cover, but I wanted to include it here because I love the design and I love the idea of Gwen in such a different role as this. This alternate version of Gwen appeared solely on the 2015 cover for 1602 Witch Hunter Angela issue number 1. At least, I believe we've only seen her here. This isn't the only time Gwen would appear as an alternate on a cover though either. During the summer of 2015, we were all suffering from Gwen fever, and as such she appeared on 20 different alternate covers, with all of them featuring different versions of Gwen. And since then, she's also had her own Gwenverse sort of come about, so there's a lot of Spider Gwen out there running around, a lot of variants. Number 7, Ghost Spider. Not really a full-on alternate of Gwen, but another character that uses this same name, Ghost Spider. And I like Ghost Spider, so I thought I would include him. Ghost Spider is actually an alternate Peter Parker from Earth 11638. He is the version of Spider-Man who never lost his uncle. Instead, Uncle Ben helped Peter with his training, but also kinda turned him into a monster. Peter in this world was extremely successful, a wealthy celebrity scientist and philanthropist who also fought crime as the vigilante Amazing Spider. However, he started to use his technology to trap other spider variants from other worlds so he could drain them of their powers, taking all that power for himself. Having never learned the lesson, with great power comes great responsibility, but instead, with great power comes a great responsibility to stay powerful from his uncle. However, when 616 Spider-Man was about to be drained, this alternate version had actually a change of heart and ended up sacrificing himself to free the main reality Peter, seemingly perishing but really becoming something new, becoming one with his regrets and the souls of the underworld. He was revived as Ghost Spider. no hyphen. And he's basically kind of like Ghost Rider meets Spider-Man, but he also uses the name Ghost Spider, so I just thought he would be an interesting one to include since he uses the same name that Spider-Gwen uses now currently in the comics. Number 6. Secret Wars. This version of Spider-Gwen is from the 2015 A-Force series. She was an alternate from the reality of Earth 16191, one of the protectors of Doom's Battleworld realm known as Arcadia, one of the patchwork domains from God Emperor Doom's kingdom that appeared during the 2015 Secret Wars event. In this reality, Spider-Gwen saved MJ from a Marvel Zombies horde, and it's kind of implied that the two may have some kind of romantic relationship in this universe. Or I don't know, they just seemed kind of flirty to me, so I could be wrong there, but picking up on some flirting. My flirting meter went off. Number 5. Gwenum. Not the official name of this character, but a name that I gave them. While on Earth 65, Spider-Gwen actually does become Venom for a time, there is actually a version of her who stays as Venom and also becomes a detective. And actually the version, the name that we know Gwen as is kind of Gwenum, or like that's the editorial name, or Venom, but this version is Venom all the time, so I just thought why not just call her Gwenum, but she doesn't go by that name, just so you know. This is pretty cool though, right? This Gwen variant is from the alternate reality of Earth 617, where her origin story was actually the same as the 616 Gwen Stacy counterpart, up until she had a run-in with her own alternate from Earth 65, which caused the timeline to split, hence why her reality is known as 617. Get it? It's 616, but like one change. After the death of her father, George Stacy, which Gwen initially blamed Spider-Man for, Gwen ran into Spider-Gwen of Earth 65. Following their run-in with one another, where each was able to kind of provide some insight that helped the other, Gwen of Earth 617 was inspired to become a detective. Later, she would bond with the Venom symbiote of her Earth, becoming the hero known as Spider-Woman. But I like to call her Gwenum, just because if I called everyone Spider-Woman on this list, it'd be confusing. Speaking of, number 4. Spider-Woman. Seriously, one of the cutest realities around. On this Earth, Spider-Gwen is married to Miles Morales, and the two of them actually have kids together, one daughter and one son. Their children also inherited superpowers and fought for justice alongside their mom and dad as members of the Amazing Eight. The Amazing Eight is Earth 8's premier superhero team, which is made up of actual spider heroes from across the multiverse. This Gwen is not just a member of the Amazing Eight team, but also belongs to the Council of Spider-Women, which is made up of, well, you guessed it, alternate versions of Spider-Woman from across the Marvel multiverse, or Spider-Verse if you prefer. Number 3. Ghost Spider, with the hyphen. Ghost Spider is technically the main version of this character, but the weird thing is that although she may be more popular than the original Gwen Stacy from Marvel Comics at this point, who has been long gone, Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider as she is now known, actually started off herself as a variant. However, she has become so popular among fans that she's kind of become more known now as the main version of that character, which is kind of wild to think about. So even though it feels weird to have her on this list, as you know, she is the main person to inspire the variants that are on the list, she's the main person that inspired this list, it feels weird to not have her on here since she herself was inspired by the original Gwen Stacy of Earth 616. So really, she's a variant. Ghost Spider has been known by many names, initially being known as Spider-Woman before becoming Venom in her reality, and later becoming more well known as Spider-Gwen until recently in 2019, when she took the codename of Ghost Spider for herself. Number 2. Gwen Stacy. Gwen Stacy is technically also a main version of Gwen, if not, you know, the main version of Gwen, since she herself was the original. She hails from Earth 616, known as the main Marvel continuity in the comics. Here, Gwen's story was cut short when she was tragically killed during a fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man. Being tossed from either George Washington or Brooklyn Bridge, depending on the version that you're reading of this story, Gwen plummeted towards the ground. Without enough time to catch her himself, Spider-Man shot a web towards her. This succeeded in securing Gwen, saving her from the fall, but tragically is believed to have caused Gwen's neck to snap, instantly killing her. Still, while Gwen is no longer among the living in the Earth 616 universe, her presence is constantly felt, with her friends and loved ones constantly remembering her and keeping her memory alive. Most recently, Spider-Man saw the progenitor adopt the image of Gwen during the AXE Judgment Day event, while acting as his judge, which shows you just how important Gwen still is to Peter even today, despite her being gone for so long from his life. Number 1. Gwenpool. Gwenpool is one of my favorite Gwen alternates. She is actually an alternate version of two different characters, a mashup of Gwen Stacy and Deadpool, hence Gwenpool. Gwenpool originates from a world where superheroes exist only in fiction, which has led many to believe that she exists in our universe, Earth 1218, the real world. However, Gwen doesn't actually have an official designated number for her Earth yet, so it's still kind of up for debate. Regardless, Gwen preferred to live in a fantasy world and eventually did end up in a fantasy world, coming to Earth 616. Finally existing in a world where superheroes were real, Gwen set out to become one herself, going out and getting a costume and ending up unintentionally with the hero name of Gwenpool.
Starting off our list at number 10 is Assassin Spider-Man. In What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, we are introduced to Spider Assassin, a Spider-Man variant who is just a little bit more loose when it comes to the morals he follows. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led the Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York City in order to protect his family from the villains who would make personal strikes. Instead, Peter joined up with Wolverine, and because of their time traveling and working together, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife, meaning he does it on the regs. He's also almost always serious, not resorting to the usual quips and jokes that we are used to Peter using to cope with difficult or precarious situations anymore. His serious nature is also reflected in his costume, with a much darker look, especially with those black eyes. I really dig it. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include some more lethal means of dealing with his foes. He is an effective addition to the Spider Army when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man indeed. Number 9. The Spider. There are a lot of characters who go by the name of the Spider, including a pulp hero from way back in the day, but specifically we are talking about a Peter Parker variant that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote coming from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker. He even claims that he has been sentenced to a total of, quote, 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes that he has committed. But of course, to make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. It's great, if not a little unnerving. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-saving Weapons X team featured in it. Being a sometimes leader of the team, as a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful. But he was nonetheless sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44, because when you're dealing with the multiverse, there is bound to be someone stronger than you, no matter what you do and who you are. Number 8. Marvel Universe vs. The Punisher. In this universe, the Punisher interrupts an arms deal involving what he thinks is a briefcase nuke, only to discover that it is in fact a man-made virus that, for Frank Castle, makes him immune to infection, illness, and disease. That's really good, but it didn't quite do this for everyone else. The problem here is that the chemical weapon found its way into the water supply and then into the food, and started in New York, spreading to the whole world through infected travelers. And then it started turning people and heroes into starting with Spider-Man. Spider-Man of Earth 11080 became infected with one of Marvel's deadliest viruses, which transformed him into a raging tribal. He viciously ate the Rhino on live TV and started an infection that eventually took over the entire world. In this new post-apocalypse, this terrifyingly evil Spider-Man became Patient Zero and took control of a portion of the former New York City, facing a rival tribe of other man-eaters led by the Kingpin, who took Spider-Man's mate, Mary Jane, prompting Patient Zero Spider-Man to hire the immune Frank Castle to rescue her. But then he met his sticky end, so. Number 7. Spider from Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the name of the Spider, including a pulp hero from way back in the day, but specifically today we are talking about a Peter Parker variant that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote coming from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, and that's the scary part. He's a ginger. He even claims that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes that he has committed. But of course, to make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. It's great, if not a little unnerving. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-saving Weapon X team featured in that story, being a sometimes leader of the team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he nonetheless was sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. When you're dealing with the multiverse, there is bound to be someone stronger than you, no matter what you do and who you are, even if you're a scary Spider-Man. Number 6. Zombie Spider-Man. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to, all the same powers at least, except after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, combined with the fact that he is essentially undead and can take a whole whack more punishment. Both of those factors led him and a group of other heroes, who were zombified, to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the power cosmic. With the power cosmic, the zombie Galacti, which is what they called themselves, have the ability to absorb and tap ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy through their hands and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time, time travel, and manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. But they mainly use it to get to the next snack. Though Spider-Zombie loses all this power eventually, he still had it and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man, and also a really scary one because he would eat your face. Number 5. Dark Ages. Dark Ages is, in my opinion, a pretty underrated story. Essentially, a superpowered machine known as the Unmaker was causing massive devastation in the core of the planet, and in an attempt to stop the threat, a portal created by Doctor Strange released an EMP that completely crippled the world's technology. The story essentially sees the world rebuilding itself without the use of any advanced technology, while also dealing with the many threats of the world, including werewolves, vampires, and supervillains, specifically the mutant apocalypse. Now, Miles Morales was one of the survivors of this new society, although here, Miles became bonded to the Venom symbiote, which he used to try and help people during the first early years. They worked really well together until the Carnage symbiote also forcibly bonded itself to Miles as well. Now, this isn't like Carnage kicked out Venom or anything like that. It's Carnage corrupting Venom, and the two symbiotes together both agreed to take over Miles' body. And they even went to work for Apocalypse in exchange for a ship to escape the Earth. All the while, Miles remained unconscious, being used as an unwilling host. It sounds horrifying because it is. That's scary. Number 4. Poison. Ever since the first time Venom and Spider-Man bonded together, that pesky little symbiote would continuously try to merge with Peter Parker, but he would only get about halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Venom finally gets what he wants? Well, in the What If Spider-Man The Other story, we get to find out. After Peter is semi-defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God called The Other. But instead of allowing this like he does in the normal continuity, Peter refuses and is instead stuck in his cocoon, half alive. Now we cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses the vulnerability of his soulmate and completely ditches his current host, Mac Gargan. He intercepts Peter's body, and after months of struggling inside the cocoon, monstrously breaking down Peter Parker, Venom fully bonds to Peter. Now the pair are truly one and the same, with all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, which include being able to replicate itself and host more than one body, producing stingers that are strong enough to pierce Luke Cage's skin, and the newly dubbed being, known as Poison, was even able to resurrect Gwen Stacy in a form that seems to take after Venom's offspring, Carnage. Number 3. Spider-Man Pestilence. Yes, that's right, everyone's favorite web-slinger was a Horseman of Apocalypse at more than one point, but every time he has been, he was Pestilence. So yes, you lucky nerds are getting 2 points in one here. Look at that. Don't say I never gave you anything, ever. On Earth 5701, Peter goes full spider in his horseman form with 4 arms and 4 legs. It's actually super freaky and I do not like it. He, Archangel, and Famine are tasked with going on a merry reality-hopping hunt of Cable, which they ultimately fail at. Now in the Earth 10082 reality, Peter is Pestilence again, but a different kind of terrifying as he is fused with his Pestilence steed because of the techno-organic virus, becoming all white and hairy and pure nightmare fuel. He's like a person with a horse on him. It's scary. He and the other horsemen of this reality go to the mainline Earth to fight the Avengers with Apocalypse. and they kind of lose, but whatever. Number 2, Spider-Man. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to Spider-Man, a colony of thousands of radioactively powered spiders who, in a moment of absolute horror, consumed a high school kid by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter Parker, something strange happened. Instead of the spiders just going about their lives, the whole gaggle of spiders gained a sort of hive mind, and they took on the form of Peter himself and began fighting crime in the aptly named Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or if they're hungry for power, they can devour them whole. And it's incredibly hard to actually take out this version of Spider-Man, as even a single spider of the thousands who make up this being survives. It means technically, Spider-Man is also still alive, and it can and will eventually multiply to rebuild itself, or himself, or their self, whatever you want to call him. I don't know. And finally, in number 1 today, it's Patton Parnell. I think this is the most terrifying version of Spider-Man I've ever seen. Maybe even more so than Spider-Man, and he's a colony of spiders. Patton Parnell is nothing like Peter Parker. He's a sociopath, a maniac, and he has the ability to transform into a monster Spider-Man hybrid with 8 eyes, 8 limbs, and massive spider-like fangs. Seeing this bald monster thing crawl around your walls and ceiling, that's scary enough, but knowing that he ate at least 3 people, including his uncle, and can implant hundreds of baby spiders into you just by biting you is absolutely nightmare-inducing. Luckily, he gets defeated pretty soon after his creation by Morlun, but at the time, Patton Parnell from Earth 51412 was around. He was very, very powerful and extremely scary.